Smoke and Sam Kahn, theathletic.com, who's at SEC Media Days in Dallas. And Sam, don't let us hang up on you without getting back to the story you guys did a week ago on the ramifications of Nick Saban's retirement. So how would you describe SEC Media Days? I don't know if this is your first time through, but I got a feeling it might be.
It is not. This is, I think, my third or fourth time. I did it the first 2 years that Texas A&M was in it, but
That's
I haven't been here in almost 10 years because I'll be honest, the access is not as good as Big 12 is. So it's just so much more media, and I felt it was hard to get some real one-on-one time unless you're on Radio Row. So I haven't done it in a long time, but obviously it being here in the state of Texas, there was no way I was going to get out of it. And honestly, I will tell you guys, it doesn't feel as complete. I'm standing here on Radio Row, and you guys are not here. What is up with that?
Well, it was a shock to our system too, Sam.
Yeah, what's the guy's name? Is it Rob Dunlap or whoever, the media relations
Chuck
guy?
Dunlap, yeah.
Yeah.
We applied, Sam.
Yeah.
We applied and got turned down. There's just too many media requests, I guess, that they left us out in the cold. But it was not for a lack of effort.
It's their loss.
I'm gonna have to go talk to Chuck and be like, and make him hip to you guys and understand why you guys should be here, because you guys would fit right in with all these guys over here in the Omni. Because I'm looking at them all right now, and honestly, you guys are better than all of them.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate that. Sam Kahn with theathletic.com. So anything from today that sticks out? I know Texas, Alabama, but UT was there, their first media days with as a member of the SEC.
Yeah, it was interesting because I came in wondering if Texas was going to get those questions that Texas A&M did 12 years ago about, well, are you ready for the big bad SEC? Because when A&M first got here, I remember it was really strange to listen to people ask the questions like, man, like they were going to a funeral or something, like, how are you guys going to compete? And I didn't really see people ask that as much as Texas. And I think that has a lot to do, obviously, with the success that program had last year, going to the playoffs, going to 12-2, winning the Big 12, and beating Alabama in Alabama the way they did. I think Texas has garnered a lot of respect, and I think you feel that here. You see people, they're not looking down on Texas. They're not thinking, oh, well, how are you guys going to come handle the SEC? Well, I think based on how they played last year against Alabama, that was a little bit of evidence. Now, that's one game, not 12. So it is a little bit of difference. So Sark was asked, how do you handle that grind? And I think he said his view is it's more mental than it is physical, because you have to get up for every game. You're not going to have games where you can just, we can, for Houston, for instance, like Houston was a game last year that they probably didn't play their best football, but they were still able to escape with a win at the last second. You can less afford to do that in the SEC because just the sheer amount of line talent, because you will get beat by a Mississippi State. Texas A&M can tell you firsthand. Ole Miss and Mississippi State have clipped them more times than Texas A&M would care to tell you, because A&M wasn't fully ready, and those things can happen a little bit in this conference. So I think overall there's a lot of confidence in Texas. There's a lot of respect that Texas is going to be a factor. And the guys they brought here, I think Quinn Ewers, Kelvin Banks, Jade Barron are just three of the guys that embody how good this Texas team could be.
Have you felt a little chippiness with, when you ask Texas A&M questions, and then tomorrow, obviously, you get A&M. Do you feel there'll be a little bit of that there already?
I think it'll be more on the A&M side. We'll see. I'd be curious to see. I have actually gone around and asked the players, because I wanted to know, we all care about this rivalry. Those of us who live in Texas, have grown up watching college football in Texas. But these young men who are going to play in this game have not played in this rivalry, and has not existed in football for the last 13 years. So I wanted to know, and I asked guys, does this game matter to you? How much does it matter to you? And I was pleasantly surprised to hear that they do care about it, and not surprised that they care about it, but surprised to know that it is something that's on their mind. And I think a lot of that has to do less with the Texas A&M dynamic, but more the fact that the guys on the other side are guys that they played high school football with or high school football against. All the guys that were brought here by Texas are Texas high school products. A lot of the guys that Texas A&M is bringing tomorrow are Texas high school products. So that brings a certain familiarity, and I think that's one reason why we all love that rivalry game. I asked Sark, what do you think about how much this game matters to them, and he kind of laughed like, "Oh, this game matters," but it to him, it's not even a question. And that's going to be the interesting dynamic too with Texas and the SEC is they keep the Oklahoma rivalry, you add A&M back, and now you also have the Arkansas game, which, as we know, and anybody who saw that game in 21 when they went to Fayetteville and got hammered, Arkansas cares a lot about that rivalry. I can promise you that. And so I think Stark even said it. I think he said there are some fans out there that maybe hate Texas more than they love their own team. And I don't know if that was a shot at Arkansas, but I think there's an understanding, certainly from Texas' side, that those games matter a lot, and they're going to treat them as such.
Mm-hmm.
Sam, you've covered A&M for quite a while. Do you think some of the, and look, man, social media is social media, so this stuff, A&M will run away from all this is kind of crazy about how A&M's going to react to Texas. How overblown? I mean, obviously they did not want this. They wanted to be exclusive. They wanted to be the only Texas team. But big picture, is that being kind of blown out of proportion, or do you really think there are those very extreme negative feelings on the part of A&M for kind of how all this has evolved?
I think just like anything, it's all on a spectrum. There's going to be a segment of the fan base that is going to feel very strongly and feel very negatively about the fact that Texas is back in the conference. But I think the vast majority of them, if you get them down, you look deep into their hearts, they're excited about that game this fall. Because you know why? Because it's a chance to actually win and prove yourself. It's a chance to throw all that talk and all the social media stuff and all the arguments all year about recruiting or conference supremacy that we used to have when they were in the SEC and Texas in the Big 12. You throw all that out because guess what? You can settle it for 60 minutes on November 3rd. And then the team that wins that game gets to hold those bragging rights for the next 365 days. And ultimately, that's what we want, right? We want competition. We want to go head to head against the rival, and we want to beat them. And that's, I think, so Texas A&M fans, are they annoyed that Texas came and followed them to the SEC? Of course. But I think most of them, when you get closer to that game, they are going to want it to win it so bad that it's going to matter. And I think Texas is going to feel the same way. Texas is going to go into Kyle Field knowing how hostile that environment's going to be, how loud it's going to be. And they're going to want to win that game, and they're probably going to have something on the line. Hey, heck, who's to say? Maybe Texas A&M has something on the line if their season goes right. I mean, that game could have some stakes in the postseason, which adds even more to it. So I think you're right that it is a little bit overblown. I think we sometimes live in the social media bubble a little bit too much. And I think the regular fan, especially the ones who are going to be there and those who have grown up with this rivalry, are just excited to know that it's going to continue.
Sam, if I had to pick a favorable SEC schedule, A&M's would be it. I mean, look, I know this is a team that's perpetually 8-4, but yes, they've got a really tough game right off the bat. It's not in the SEC, but it's Notre Dame. But as far as the ranked teams go, and the teams that everybody expects to be good, it's just three of them in Mizzou, LSU, and Texas. So if they can just win, a couple of those games against the ranked opponents and not, drop the ball like they have, which has been the problem against a team they're not supposed to beat, this could be a little bit exciting for Mike Elko.
I agree. And the funny thing to me is I feel like that Texas A&M this offseason has flown under the radar a little bit, which is something they haven't done the last few years, because we remember the number one recruiting class and Jimbo Fisher's argument with Nick Saban, and then Jimbo obviously on the hot seat. And A&M, I felt like, was perpetually in the headlines for a lot of different reasons, not necessarily related to their play on the field. That's changed this offseason. Elko and everybody in College Station, it's been very quiet. There's not a lot of noise being made out of there. And I think Elko wants it that way. I think that's by design, because I think what he wants is people not talking about A&M, kind of laying in the weeds and sleeping on them. Because you know what? That roster is still very talented. For all the guys that they have lost, they still have a lot of 4-star and 5-star recruits who have developed into really good players. They still have a lot of depth on that depth chart. They went in, plugged the holes in the portal really well. I thought they've done a really good job of managing the roster this offseason. And if they win that Notre Dame game, I think that's going to wake some people up. I think that's going to let people know, hey, this team still has the potential to be good. And would it shock me if A&M ended up 10-2 at the end of this year? I don't think so. I think I would not be shocked at all if they were. I'm not saying that's what they're going to be, but I do think they have the type of high-end talent to do that, and that's what makes this Mike Elko debut season so fascinating.
So, Sam, I know that Oklahoma, the expectations are Oklahoma. There's a reason why they are who they are.
There's some real disrespect going on, I feel like, at this point, man.
I did not realize until we had a guest on, what was it, yesterday, that all 5 of their offensive linemen will be brand new, and then the transfer portal. But it's not. They had the year 2 years ago that was not good in Venable's first year. Last year they bounced back pretty well, but it's almost as if. I know where UT's coming in with all these expectations of what they were. It's not even that. It's almost as if, oh, yeah, and Oklahoma's a part of this too. Should it be that way?
Yeah, it's fascinating because I agree with you, and I do feel like Oklahoma got a little bit of that, what I was talking about A&M 12 years ago. I think people are looking at OU and wondering, are you guys ready for this? And I think it's because even though they're a great program and they've been more dominant in the Big 12 than Texas has, you look at what Texas accomplished, and Oklahoma is still kind of coming out of it. I think there's still some memory of what happened in Brent Venable's first year. Obviously, they did a lot better last year, but I think there's a lot of uncertainty from outsiders who look at that team. But I do think they did a good job overall filling some of the gaps, and I will tell you, I'm a huge, huge Jackson Arnold fan. I think he is going to be an absolute star. I know he had some interceptions in that bowl game, but the raw talent is there. Watching him win a state or take his team to a state championship game and watching him compete, I think there's a reason why Dylan Gabriel's not there anymore. And there's a reason why Oklahoma fans are so excited about this guy. So if Oklahoma has a chance to break out, I think it's going to be because Jackson Arnold has made that jump from true freshman to, hey, I'm legitimately here. I'm going to lead this team to greatness. I don't think and I don't anticipate Oklahoma being a 10-win team or anything like that. But if they were to do better than people think and not be punching bag, wouldn't shock me. But I do think there is going to be an adjustment for Oklahoma fans that are used to, hey, winning the Big 12 or competing for a conference championship every single year. It's going to be a lot harder to do that here. It's just the fact of the matter. And maybe that's changing expectations because guess what? Winning a conference title is not going to be the end-all, be-all anymore in the sport because all that really matters now is do you get a playoff spot? And I do think long-term, regardless of how they fare in the conference title race, I think Oklahoma can be long-term in the position to be a contender for one of those 12 playoff spots.
I want to go back. Yeah, I want to go back to the access because there's hundreds and hundreds of people there. And there's 16 teams and there's a bunch of alphas. But we had 8 to 10 of the head coaches on at Big 12 Media Days, and it was a pretty good contingent. It was still a nice, large contingent in Las Vegas. So you're saying that there's not a lot of that on the side, one-on-one type stuff that you used to get with the Big 12?
I think with a Radio Row you can, but not for print guys. That was easier for me to get at Big 12. It's a lot harder to get a one-on-one, like getting Sark one-on-one off to the side or maybe Elko tomorrow off to the side. That's going to be really difficult. And it's just kind of the nature of this thing. When this thing was in Birmingham at the Winfrey for so long, I remember every year they would announce how many media are here and the number. I don't know what the number is now. I don't know what it is this year, but I remember it's been as large as 1,400 media members here. That's a lot.
Yeah. I think
that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
You're talking one head coach for each school and 3 players. So, I mean, I understand why it is the way it is, but it makes it a little bit of a spectacle, and it's fun. I enjoy seeing everybody, but if you're trying to get something exclusive or something different from everyone else, that's really, really difficult.
Yeah, I think I saw a number a day or two ago. It's 1,500 credentialed media for SEC Media Days, which I think the Big 12 was like a third of that. And you know what? I'm okay with that because Las Vegas was great, Sam. I thought it was really well done and worked out really well. So, yeah.
Hey, I want to ask you one question before we say goodbye, and we do appreciate your time. And you can tell Chuck Dunlap that he made a mistake.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So you wrote the article, Bruce Feldman, Max, on the repercussions and the consequences staff-wise of Saban's retirement. When did you guys start working on that? How long did it take? And that was an exhaustive type, I guess you could say, project.
Yeah, it's funny. So I'll give you a little background on this. Max Olson, who you guys know well, Max has done these stories before. He did one about 10 years ago when Mac Brown got pushed out of Texas. When we were both together at ESPN. And I always thought that was such a great story. And then him and Bruce a couple of years ago ran it back when the Egg Bowl, after the Egg Bowl, where both coaches got fired afterward, they did one on that one. And so the day after Saban retired, I messaged both of them and I said, hey guys, this would be a really good time to bring that story back for the Saban retirement, because I bet you the after effects of this are going to be massive, more than anything we've ever seen. And so the day after he retired, which he retired on January 10th, so January 11th, Max started the spreadsheet and started filling out everybody on the Alabama staff. And then from then on, and Max is the MVP for this one because he did most of the legwork on the spreadsheet. And me and Bruce did our best to help him on tracking who's going where and what gaps do we need to fill. But it took months. Max for the next couple months was monitoring every staff move. And that sounds easy in practice, but when you think about some of the staff, we were going all the way down to quality control, GAs, nutrition, strength and conditioning, we're talking, administrative assistants for the head coaches. Not all those people have bios on the websites, and not all those people maybe announced in the news that they're moving. And so it took a lot of time just to get that part down. Once we got all that, then the actual reporting process, I think we probably talked to a couple dozen coaches, and, the writing process, I think that whole process probably took a couple of months, but we started it the day after Saban retired. And then of course it ended up coming out earlier this month. And I was just happy to be a part of it. I'm really proud of what we produced. And like we said, it was 423 staff changes that were a chain reaction to the Saban retirement, which I think is more than any we've seen, including, I think, 6 or 7 head coaching changes when you include not just the head coaches that followed the Saban retirement, but also guys who left their head coaching position, like Kane Womack at South Alabama or Maurice Linguist at Buffalo, to be on the Alabama staff. So, like you think about Maurice Linguist leaving Buffalo, that means 50 people on the Buffalo staff all of a sudden had an uncertain future. And that was what was fascinating to me, is that just because one head coach moves, dozens of people are affected. And it's not just those people, it's their families, their wives, their kids. They're all impacted by this because they're suddenly wondering, am I going to have a job? Do I have to move? What's going to happen? And those are people that are not paid as much as these coaches. And that was what was fascinating to me. I did the very last part of it about Charlie Rizzio, the head coach at Cisco Junior College, that he's a guy who's been a coaching lifer, who's been at Division II, Division III, high school, Pop Warner, and he got a promotion from defensive coordinator at Cisco to head coach at Cisco because the chain reaction from Saban's retirement eventually trickled down to Cisco, Texas. And that to me was the essence of the story, and what made it so fascinating, what made it so fun to work on. And I'm glad we got to be a part of it and we got to do it, because I thought it was really revealing about how interconnected this profession and this sport is.
Well, it affected Baylor's staff with Kapilovich, the offensive line coach, who had brought in 2 or 3 transfers, gotten a couple of nice commits, and then a week or 2 later, he's off to Alabama. So it affected a lot of different people. You're right. Paul, were you going to say something?
I just want to know who their chart and graphs guy is. That's some ornate charts and graphs, and they were quite good.
Yeah, it's one of those.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, that was collaborative effort on our. We have a really good graphic design team. They got a hold of Max's spreadsheet in early June, so they started working on that stuff. I think 6 weeks before we published it, and I was really pleased with how that looked and turned out. And you guys are right. Yeah, when Kapilovich went to Alabama, then Baylor hired Mason Miller from Tarleton.
Yep.
Tarleton went and hired Stephen Lee, who was the head coach at Cisco, and that was what led Charlie Rizzio to being promoted to head coach over there. And that's the thing that's fascinating, is like Nick Saban, who got paid $10+ million a year and has all these different issues that are way different from what Stephen Lee and Charlie Rizzio were dealing at Cisco, where they don't have a large support staff. They don't have a full strength staff. They have to go check the dorms and clean out rooms and do the academic advising all themselves. But at the end of the day, and this was the thing that Rizzio told me, he goes, look, at the end of the day, we're all football coaches. We all have problems. It's just that Nick Saban has Mercedes-Benz problems and we have Hyundai problems. And to me, I thought you couldn't put it much better than that.
Thank you so much, Sam. Appreciate it. Enjoy tomorrow. Sam Kahn, theathletic.com. He's at SEC Media Days with a bunch of great stories and angles for us here on this show, and you, the audience, too.